Hi, everyone, and welcome to Search Sessions. We're so excited to have you join us today. I am Christine Pratt, our Director of Content here at Boostability, and I'll be hosting our show today. Search Sessions is a thought leadership series dedicated to helping businesses position themselves for success, no matter their industry or location. Every show has expert guests, business strategists, and industry leaders to provide key advice and insights that you can apply to elevate your business to the next level. And this week, we have a huge show all based on an upcoming algorithm update that we know will have a big impact on the search and internet landscape. That's the Google Page Experience Update. And just this week, Google announced that we will now have a little bit more time to prepare, which is great news. It was going to start rolling out in a couple weeks in May, but now we know that it's going to come in mid-June and roll out throughout the summer into August. So while you have another month, that doesn't mean you can relax. Take this time to be ready for it. And we're here to help you do just that with today's show. So in today's Search Sessions, we'll be hearing from Rohit Day, Head of Revenue for Americas and EMEA with Website Experience Optimization Platform, VWO. Thank you so much, Rohit, for being with us.
Thank you, Christine. Thanks for having me. And great talking to the audience on the Search Sessions platform today.
Awesome. And we also have our Boostability SEO manager, Maya Teagle, with us to talk us through what you need to know from an SEO perspective. So thank you, Maya, for being here as well.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Awesome. By the end of the session, you will have some key action items that you can apply to your website so you're ready for this page experience update. And we have a lot to cover, so let's jump into today's agenda. As people continue to filter in, we'll first start out with some introductions into VWO and Boostability, and then we'll really explain what we know about Google's page experience update, as well as how to improve your website performance and the user experience. And then how to really improve your SEO strategy for the Google Page Experience Update. And then we'll finalize with how the Page Experience Update impacts website performance. And then finally, at the end, we'll have Q&A. So throughout the talk, drop your questions into the chat or into the Q&A feature here on Zoom. I'll be monitoring them, and then we'll address them at the end. So to introduce Rohit and VWO, Rohit has 12 years of experience in website optimization technology consulting. He's helped over 500 brands choose the right platform for their conversion optimization needs. Rohit is an evangelist of experience-led and user experience-led data to help businesses make informed decisions that lead to growth. And VWO is the world's leading experience optimization and growth platform. VWO helps create digital experiences for your customers and increase conversions around the entire customer journey by providing one integrated platform to understand visitor behavior, run experiments, personalize experiences, and re-engage them. Used by 2,500 plus brands across 90 countries, VWO clients span across industries, including online retail, fashion, travel, B2B, SaaS, media entertainment companies, including Domino's, Target, and eBay. And VWO is the winner of several industry awards, including G2 Crowd Leader in A/B testing. So we're so excited to have Rohit and VWO on the show today. And for Boostability, we are the global leader in small business and partner-focused white label SEO. We offer affordable SEO specifically designed to meet the needs of small to medium-sized businesses. Our proprietary technology platform, Launchpad, tracks over 2.3 million keyword rankings per month, which enables us to make strategic SEO decisions based on millions of bits of information. And not only that, but we serve customers and partners around the world. We're in 15 countries, servicing in 9 languages, and continue to expand every year. We get 86% of our customers on the first page of Google within 6 months and got 78,000 plus keywords for our customers on page 1 of Google in 2020. Boostability is dedicated to helping businesses succeed online. So before we really dive into everything, I want everyone to know that this talk will be available later. If you're joining late or you just missed something, we will post it on our YouTube channel and on our Boostability website. So check for that later. And then so you'll be able to watch that again if needed. So before we really dive into the how to prepare for the page experience update, let's first tell you what it really is. A little bit about how Core Vitals plays into it and what we know about the updates so far. So Maya, I'm going to send it over to you to break it down for us. Google announced this about a year ago, so we know it's going to be a big deal.
Awesome. Thanks, Christine. So nearly a year ago, Google announced Core Web Vitals as a new metric to measure the user experience and page performance of a website. It was later disclosed that Core Web Vitals, along with several other items, would become a ranking factor, thus changing the name to the Page Experience Update that you know now. As Christine mentioned earlier, the initial rollout was set to take place at the beginning of next month, but was recently postponed until mid-June. Previous algorithm updates focused heavily on traditional SEO strategies like keyword placement and obtaining higher quality backlinks. And this is still important for SEO, but user experience and website functionality have played a more prominent role in recent algorithm updates. The Page Experience Update follows that pattern, and with it, SEO and user experience become even more intertwined. So overall, the Page Experience Update focuses on addressing site speed issues and improving core web vital metrics and enhancing user experience through both SEO and website functionality. So we'll break this down into more detail on the following slides. So what are the ranking factors in the Page Experience Update? Google has announced that the following 5 items will be ranking factors in the Page Experience Update, and therefore will impact your website performance and visibility. So that is core web vitals, mobile friendliness, intrusive interstitial guidelines, safe browsing, and HTTPS. On the next slide, core web vitals. So the 3 metrics within the core web vitals thus far are largest contentful paint, first input delay, and cumulative layout shift. Largest contentful paint, or LCP, measures the point when the main content of the page has loaded. So this can be like an image or a text block. With that, you should be aiming for a score of 2.5 seconds or less. First input delay, or FID, measures load responsiveness, which is the amount of time it takes for the page to respond to a user's interaction. 100 milliseconds or less is a good FID score to aim for your website. And with cumulative layout shift, also known as CLS, this measures the visual stability of a page and how often site visitors experience unexpected layout shifts, which can cause you to click a button or a link that you didn't intend to at the very last minute. I see this a lot with like my Gmail. I can't tell you how many times I've actually unintentionally sent something over to junk and like lost track of my my emails coming through, and it was because of this. So it's really frustrating. With CLS, you want to aim for a metric of less than 0.1. And so scoring well on the core web vitals is indicative of a good user experience. In preparation for the Page Experience Update, we recommend start by addressing the pages that are categorized as poor URLs in your Search Console report. These are the ones that are farthest from meeting the minimum standards and need improvement as soon as possible. So if you face LCP issues, you should try reducing your image files as much as possible without affecting the quality of the image. If possible, you should use an image compression plugin if you can, if that's compatible with your backend and your CMS. But if not, you can also manually resize the image files to a smaller dimension and then re-upload them back onto the site. It's definitely a little bit more tedious and time consuming, but it works just as well.
So my core of vitals was, for a long time, this update was mentioned that it was the core of vitals update. So these play a huge factor into the update overall. So if people aren't really sure like where to get these scores or where can they go to look for that information?
Yeah, so like to identify really which pages. So if you go into the Search Console report, they'll kind of like aggregate it. So you're not going to see anything and everything. They'll bundle them into, if there's one issue present on a product page or something like that, chances are it's present on other product pages. So they'll aggregate it together. But I love using Screaming Frog. You get a free version of it. I think it'll crawl up to 500 URLs. So it's great for smaller websites. But you can also, it's a small like subscription or an annual fee. And with that, you can configure and crawl your website to actually like specifically identify which pages are meeting these specific metrics. So it's included and bundled in there. I love to supplement it with that. And of course, like working alongside your web developer who knows so much about this, because it's definitely, there's an element of it with SEO, but it's also so heavy when it comes to web development that working in tandem with them is super helpful. I hope that answers the question. Screaming Frog's my go-to, that's for sure.
That's perfect. Thanks, Maya.
Okay, so with mobile friendliness, we can expect this to remain a ranking factor for the foreseeable future due to how much users rely on mobile devices nowadays. Despite Google having already made the shift to mobile-first indexing, there are still some things you can do now to make your site more mobile-friendly in time for the page experience update. For starters, use tools, again, like the mobile-friendly test to see how Google views your web pages. You can check specific URLs to see if they pass the mobile-friendly test or learn which areas are present for improvement. Second, make sure that your website is responsive and functions properly across multiple mobile devices, including tablets. So do an audit of your site and check for common issues like overlapping or cut off elements, buttons or links that are too close together, and text that is too small to read. And once you have your list, make it a priority to resolve the issues quickly. And then the third thing to do is improve mobile site speed. So starting with the most valuable pages on your site or the most traffic pages on the website. Core Web Vitals report in Search Console has a section specific to mobile URLs. So it's specific to like a mobile report, and check to see which pages again are marked as poor URLs and start working on those first. Or you can use Page Speed Insights for a detailed breakdown of what can be improved. It's a little bit more granular and specific. And so that's a great one to complement it with. And then intrusive interstitial guidelines, they work hand in hand with mobile friendliness. So avoid intrusive ads and interstitials on mobile. These often come in the form of a pop-up or an interactive ad placed in between content. You may have noticed this before. And while they may help generate sales, they can actually have the opposite effect for your website's performance if displayed on mobile devices. With less space than a desktop, these ads and interstitials can become annoying to mobile users and hinder their experience. It can also make it difficult for them to find the information they want when unexpected pop-ups take over their screen. And then safe browsing is also a ranking factor in the page experience update because Google wants to ensure user safety on websites, as well as to help webmasters identify and resolve security issues on their site fast. This helps promote a better user experience as a whole, and some security issues to watch for on your own website include malware, deceptive pages, harmful downloads, and uncommon downloads. Again, you can use Search Console to help you flag these issues. You can find these alerts within the security and manual actions category on the left-hand navigation, and then work closely with your web developer on resolving any present issues that threaten the safe browsing of your website if you can't do them alone. As an added layer to enhancing the security of your website and providing safe browsing for users, most websites already have made the transition from HTTP to HTTPS following Google's 2016 announcement. They encourage sites to make that transition for the benefits that both websites and site visitors would receive as a result of the migration. This has since become a common practice for most industries, not just websites in the healthcare or financial spaces. So if you haven't made that switch yet, now's the time. However, it's important to understand the impact that migrations can have on website performance as a whole. If it's not done properly, a website's traffic and sales can drop significantly. And while it's common to see this drop initially in traffic for the first several months of any migration, the problem is where it continues to drop if crucial elements are not accounted for upon the launch. This is why it's important to work with professionals who can properly execute a site redesign and migration with SEO in mind. And back over to you.
Thank you, Maya.
Yeah, thank you, Maya. So now that you really have a better understanding of what this update is, let's kind of get into the what you can do about it. So really enhancing your website experience is the very heart of this page experience update. So we're going to go over to Rohit with VWO to discuss how to improve that all-important website user experience. So over to you.
Thanks, Justine. And once again, it's a pleasure being on this show. Now, talking about the Google Page Experience Update, right? I mean, we often see Google kind of coming up with these new things. I mean, it was not back in 2015. They launched several updates, and in 2016, you had new updates coming in. But why is this Page Experience Update important, right? I mean, so to think about it, think about you're walking into a new restaurant that just opened up downtown, and you invited all your friends along, made a big hype about it, and you found a friendly shill inviting you to the restaurant, and this is what you end up seeing next. So user experience on a website is something similar, and that's one of the reasons why Google has been trying to fix it for over a number of years. So the primary reasons for the Google page experience or the performance metrics that Google is trying to change are primarily to reflect what is the real user experience when a visitor comes to your website. I mean, so on your servers, you might see that the website loaded within 5 milliseconds, 10 milliseconds, but the user is just seeing a blank user experience. Or if you talk about dead clicks, rage clicks on the website, I mean, and why this is important for marketeers, especially, I mean, who are responsible for optimizing conversions. I mean, few things that play are very important with visitors today. I mean, first, of course, is customer satisfaction. And customer satisfaction very closely relates with the user experience that the visitor has on the website, right? Second, of course, is conversions, right? All of us are in the business of improving conversions, whether it's increasing engagement, whether it's increasing number of leads, or whether it's revenue. So increasing conversions is really important. And why care about the customer experience overall? I mean, these were, even as a marketer, the goals have evolved over a period of time. Traditionally, we were almost in the click era from almost about 1999 to early 2008, where our success as a marketer was measured by the number of clicks and the amount of traffic that you generate onto the website. And then came the era where analytics became very popular, and we used to measure different metrics, whether it's bounce rate, engagement, and other attributes. But now more and more we see data-driven marketing being the core of everything that we do. So whether it's about how much pipeline are you generating for your sales team, or how much revenue did the e-commerce team generate from the paid traffic that was brought in onto the website. So that's one of the important reasons for a marketer to understand that from now and beyond, everything around user experience is going to ultimately matter the most. And hence, I mean, this page experience update is something that a marketer should really watch out for. Next slide. So for a lot of you, if you're still trying to understand how to increase conversions or performance on your website and improve user experience, this is one of the questions that I often get asked, that we already do A/B testing. As a marketer, we understand A/B testing, and we have run a lot of experiments on our website, but we don't see the needle moving when it comes to conversion rate. So the question that I always ask back is, what is in your opinion, what is the ROI of experimentation? Is it about moving the needle? Is it about increasing conversions? Or is it about really impacting user experience on your website? Because everything on your website can be tested. And if you follow a framework towards conversion rate optimization, then you will definitely be able to impact both macro and micro conversion goals on your website. This is the framework that we typically recommend to all our clients. We start off by researching the most important quantitative and qualitative metrics. You could use your analytics platform, your user behavior platform. You could collect feedback and use all of that to build a strong hypothesis for a test. You could have hypotheses and observations coming in from different team members, and you could use a prioritization framework to decide which hypothesis makes the most sense. And then once you have a hypothesis in mind, you could run that through an A/B test. And once the experiment has concluded, you don't stop there. You primarily go back and look at the results from that experiment. Even if it was a losing experiment, there are certain hidden winners within every experiment that you can go back and look at. And from those hidden winners, you could actually go back and iterate and decide what your next experiment should look like. Now, talking a bit about the research framework that you saw on the previous slide, right? Understanding audience journey is all about following the trail, right? We talk about how a typical visitor journey would look like. A visitor would typically land on a category page, or then go onto the product page in the cart and the checkout. But it is no longer the case today. The user journey today is way more complex. And what you would see is that each and every step of the journey, there are certain drop-offs that happen at each and every step, right? With category pages becoming more complex, you would have different type of new tools that you're using on your PDP pages, or you are using different tools for your checkout. It is important to test out every small change that you're making. So we get a lot of our customers who want to test out the location of the hamburger on their mobile device, whether it's on the left or the right that works better, whether having a carousel or not having a carousel as the hero image, does that work better or not? So these are the kind of things that you can actually test out. But before you start testing, you need to do your research and understand how users are interacting with different elements on your website, and what are those areas of your website where they drop off the most, right? And in this framework, I mean, you could clearly see that, I mean, most commonly used methods to generate user insights. So starting off with quantitative analytics, I mean, that's the most common one. Most marketeers typically have access to the analytics platform of their choice. Make sure that you have set up your analytics platform correctly. Make sure that you have your right goals and audiences set up so that you are measuring your entire funnel correctly. Also, it would be great if you are using a user behavior platform. So if you're using something like heat maps or session replays, make sure that gives you a lot of analysis data. So that gives you information around heat maps or click behavior on your website, scroll behavior, or you could also analyze a bunch of session recordings. Now, interesting things about session recordings or heat mapping tools. Session recordings give you a whole bunch of data, right? So you have to decide what kind of data is important and how you want to analyze that data. So make sure that you're segmenting your session recordings and only looking at the right segment of audience. When it comes to other ways of doing analysis, you could also use tools like user testing for getting feedback from an anonymous panel of users and trying to understand how are users interacting with your website. In the traditional area before COVID, we also saw a lot of customer interviews, and surveys still play a very important part. So if you are still using surveys, make sure that you are collecting user feedback at critical points of the journey. So if you are using an NPS survey after the user has made a purchase, or if they are bouncing off the website, make sure that you are triggering the survey at the right time. And you can also trigger the survey only to a small segment or a small audience of your users to understand their behavior in a better way.
Yeah, I think Rohit, you've hit the nail on the head, that especially right now, just the more data you can get, especially for optimizing your website or from your customers, I think the better. I think this behavior tracking is really growing in importance, the further we get into the 21st century, this digital era. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the heart of, I mean, every marketing organization nowadays, right? I mean, marketeers no longer are aware of data and how to use data in the right ways to get insights out of that. So great. I think we can move on to the next slide.
Awesome.
So the key impact with this update is, once this is completely rolled out, I mean, user experience will become a direct ranking factor. And this is directly from Google that, I mean, great experiences do matter for Google, right? At the end of the day, Google is around because of the users who are using the Google platform. And that is why, I mean, a bad page experience means that people are unable to find valuable information, and that itself is defeating the whole purpose or the whole vision why Google is around. So we feel, in our opinion, this is a good update, and this will impact the businesses in a positive way in the long run. Talking about the hypothesis building. So in our research framework, we also talk a lot about why a hypothesis is important. And if you look at different frameworks, if you look at CXL or some of the other folks out there who talk about a research framework, so a hypothesis is nothing but a bunch of observations put together in a structured manner to believe that a certain solution can be arrived at for a particular problem that you have in mind. So simply put, let's say my problem is I want to increase the number of leads that are generated through the website. And right now I see, based on the observations that I get, that users typically drop off while they are on the product detail page, or they are on the category page. So based on observations that I collect from looking at analytics data, looking at heat maps or survey data, I primarily then arrive at what is the conversion metric that I want to influence, and what is the solution that I plan to arrive at. So if I expect that the conversion rate will go up by 20%, that is the solution that I arrive at. And this can be for a particular audience. So if you're starting to test, then test with a smaller audience of your traffic. If you have a significant amount of traffic, you could start off with a smaller percentage or a particular audience, and testing that audience will give you much better idea as to how that change is impacting that particular audience. And again, I mean, we also believe that accountability is important. So whatever conversion goals that you're trying to measure, try and see, I mean, what was the uplift like on that particular goal? And if there wasn't any significant uplift, try reiterating that uplift with a different audience, or breaking down the data for that particular experiment and looking at different audiences within the same traffic to see if someone performed better than the other. Let's say search traffic performed better than the paid traffic. Next slide, please. And we also recommend using a prioritization framework. So we have a prioritization framework built within the VWO platform, which is based on confidence. That is, how confident are you in building in this particular hypothesis leading to an uplift in conversion rate? The next one is importance. Importance is from an organization goal standpoint, what is this particular change going to lead, or how important this particular hypothesis is for a particular business goal, and what is the change that it's going to impact. And the last one is ease of use. So if you are going ahead with this, implementing this change on the website, does this require a developer? Does this require a redesign? And how much time and effort it's going to take to build this particular experiment. So that's your prioritization framework, commonly known as ICE. So you could use that for prioritizing your hypothesis before you move into experimentation. And the last one, of course, is different type of experiments that you can choose from, starting with A/B, where you can have multiple variations of one single landing page that you could test. That URL test, pretty useful if you're testing out a large scale change or a redesign that you would like to perform on your site, and a multivariate test where you can test out more than one single variable or multiple variables at the same time to measure the impact of multiple changes that you do at the same time on the site. And the last one is the post-campaign analysis, or the measure or learn. So if your efforts are working, so if you see a lift in your experiment, or does the lift in a particular conversion goal, does it correlate with aggregated revenue lift? So you could have multiple conversion goals in your experiments to look at how they are performing. Do your lagging indicators actually correlate with the aggregated lift? So which means that are you beating your benchmarks, or are you just kind of about there where the experiment was just a minor improvement? Or best situation can be revenue attribution, that you directly connect your conversion goals to revenue, and whatever experiment that you ran gave a positive impact on your macro conversion goal, which is revenue, and directly impacted your top line. To sum it up, how you could improve the overall experience on the website, you could uncover what your audience really wants by using quantitative and qualitative behavior tools. You could plan out a roadmap of experiments by creating observations from different parts of the organization and building a testing roadmap. You could learn what drives growth by testing out various experiences and delighting the audience on your website by constantly implementing these learnings across various touch points and continuously repeating the same process to have the best user experience on the website. And of course, hypergrowth. I think everyone is looking for that, right, Christine?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know we've used this at Boostability a lot, just kind of this behavior tracking. We've done it through a couple different website platforms, including VWO, and just the amount of insights you can learn from just testing a little bit of different messaging, or even shifting around, an image, or changing, just a few little things. I think even just trying something is considered a win, because you can get the data from that. Even if it might not be or bring the result that you're hoping for, you're testing something which can bring you data, which then can help you make the informed decision.
Yes.
Awesome. One other thing, we've had a whole bunch of questions coming in, Rohit. I know we're going to do main Q&A at the end, but they're wondering a little bit about the VWO platform, or different platforms that can really help do all of this testing that you've been talking about. So could you tell us a little bit about what your platform does?
Yes, absolutely. So the VWO platform is an experience optimization platform, and the platform can do everything from analyzing qualitative and quantitative user behavior. So we start off by looking at how the funnel analysis looks like on your website, and we connect that with some of the user behavior data points through heat maps, scroll maps, and session recording data. We also have form analytics, which can be very useful for websites with a lot of forms to understand friction on different form fields. And we also have on-page surveys that can actually help to collect NPS and user feedback directly from users. And we also have the planning and prioritization framework built in. And that's a big one for a lot of marketeers and product managers to actually have their hypothesis brought in even from an external platform into VW, and then construct a solid hypothesis and then run it through an experiment. So that's, in essence, the entirety of the VW platform.
Perfect. Thank you. I hope that answers those few questions that we had that came in. I appreciate it. Awesome. Well, these are all awesome strategies, and we're going to get back to you, Rohit, in just a minute to talk really how this update will impact website performance overall. But first, since we're an SEO company, of course, we want to give you some key takeaways from an SEO perspective to help your site continue to rank with all of these optimizations and really be ready for the page experience rollout. Some of what we've been talking about may be a little bit technical from like the actual Google side of things, but there are things that you can do on your website that are easy that you can do yourself. So Maya, let's send it back over to you with some of these action items for SEO that people can implement on their website.
Definitely. And I think there was a question where somebody asked, like, are there certain strategies that can be implemented for sites that aren't necessarily like selling products? And these strategies are applicable across the board, regardless of if you are an e-com site, you're more like an informational, educational site, or you're selling a service. So hopefully you guys find this relevant. I think it's super important. But EAT, so for those who are new to this term, EAT stands for expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. With each algorithm update that's released, EAT remains a consistent ranking factor because of its close ties to enhancing the user experience of a website. It can be demonstrated through both on-site strategies like creating authoritative and accurate content, as well as off-site strategies like review generation and obtaining high-quality relevant backlinks. EAT directly correlates with user experience, and there are several ways to convey this on your website, including providing updated and factual information that reflects scientifically proven and accepted findings. I have to say scientifically proven and accepted findings because there are this pertains more so to sites that may contest like the common consensus. So if you have like Eastern medicine versus Western medicine, that's something to just be very aware of, especially when it comes to search engines and what Google will reward and will rank. So it's just important to make sure that your content is updated and factual, that you have supporting resources to back you up, implement your external links, all of that stuff. Another way to do this is create authoritative and well-researched content that provides accurate information and addresses questions outlined in the Quality Raters guidelines. And we can send this out. We'll send this out afterwards so you guys can have a link to that. It's really awesome. They have specific questions for you to ask yourself as you're writing content, making sure that you're hitting the main points. And the goal should be to address user questions on your piece. And if you don't, you run the risk of them going elsewhere, leaving your website and finding their answers, probably with a competitor or somebody else. So this can take the form of blog articles, FAQs, resource content, original research and case studies, and so much more. It's great to get creative in this area. Third option is assign an author that's authoritative and credible source within an industry. So you can convey this type of information through team bios, author bios, and about us pages on your website. And if there isn't a specific specialist or a professional in your company that can do this, seek outside help from a professional that would be willing to review your content for accuracy. You see this a lot with like WebMD and like health and wellness sites where not everybody who's writing the piece is an actual physician, but they do their due diligence and will ask people to review it. So actual specialists and physicians in the industry, you'll notice that a lot of those pieces have a reviewed by this and that, and they'll externally link back to like a bio to support and prove their credibility. So along those lines, include a disclaimer conveying this at the top of the page and even link out to a bio or another page that speaks to the reviewer's EAT. As you're doing this, aim to include information about like work experience, educational background, accolades and certifications, and anything else that enhances credibility. This is the time to brag about yourself and your website and the people on the team. So definitely don't hesitate to do that. This is the time to do so. And with content creation, I'm sure you've heard this at this point, content is king, especially when it comes to algorithms. Content is key when it comes to performing well after, during, before algorithm updates and in SEO in general. creating quality content is an effective way to demonstrate a site's EAT and to show Google that you're constantly working to improve and refresh the information featured on your website. Keywords do still play a vital role in the success of an SEO strategy. User experience is its own thing. It's huge. They go in tandem together, but keywords are necessary for SEO. So do some keyword research, in-depth keyword research to identify content opportunities and to drive your strategy. As mentioned earlier, you can create informative blogs and articles, your resource content, white papers, and so much more. Get creative with your approach, incorporate keywords and links throughout the content, and provide accurate, high-quality content that your site visitors will actually find valuable. And then repurposing existing content is also a key strategy. It's just as important to repurpose existing content on your site as well as creating new content on your site. It's so easy for information to become outdated. So make sure that you update the content on your website to reflect what's current and accurate. Refreshing content should be an ongoing strategy with the goal to make the content far better than the original version, and to also show Google that you're constantly working to improve your website. They want to see continuous updates. They want to see that you're working on it, improving, refreshing, editing, all that stuff. So one and done just doesn't apply here. You need to go back and optimize it some more throughout time. Then not everything can be repurposed, so that's kind of a little contesting there, but keeping in mind that not everything can be, and in that case, it's considered deadweight content. This is stuff that no longer serves your website or the user and is irrelevant at this point. Deadweight content can also take up valuable space within the crawl budget, and it can make it harder for pages that are important for your website, like your top priority pages, to be crawled and indexed, because these other pages that aren't serving the purpose anymore are still being crawled and indexed. So that's something to be cognizant of. To do this deadweight audit, start by running an audit of your website and identify how much content you have in there first and foremost. Then check analytics data on each page to see how well it's generated traffic in the last 6 months to a year. Remember to check if the page has converted or made any sales. That's a big one right there. So you can find this information in analytics for sure. And then as well as if the page ranks for the right keywords or has any valuable backlinks tied to it. With this, like, there's going to be numerous tools that you can use there's not just one to use, there's several of them that work together. So analytics, Search Console, Screaming Frog, again, is a great one. If you have access to SEMrush or Ahrefs, you can get backlink information, you can get keyword information, which ones have you been registering for and ranking for. So all of these work together to help you make your decisions on which pages to remove. So based off that information, you're going to segment your data based off what pages are still valuable, which ones are ranking, which ones are still generating that value and traffic, which pages need to be repurposed, which ones can be consolidated to avoid keyword cannibalization. This can definitely get a little muddled, especially when your content strategy grows and it gets bigger and bigger. And sometimes you forget, like, you wrote a piece that's really similar to the one that you wrote last year. So those keywords are going to naturally compete against each other. That's keyword cannibalization. So sometimes they need to be consolidated into one and hence repurposed. And then ultimately which pages to remove and redirect entirely. And while relevancy is not necessarily a direct ranking factor, experts in the field believe that it's going to play a larger role than ever before. In previous updates, user intent and relevancy have stood out as key differences between sites that dropped and sites that were rewarded. So creating an optimal user experience for searchers includes showing results that match what they searched for. Google is becoming smarter with determining which pages to rank on a SERP based on a keyword intent, also known as searcher intent. What you can do for your website is to choose keywords that appeal to your target audience and create content that matches the intent behind the keyword. So you're gonna have to manually look it up, do it in incognito mode, check what type of pages are being rewarded and what Google is ranking there to get a better understanding of the intent behind that term. And then when writing the content, do your best to answer all possible questions that a searcher can have regarding the topic. If they leave with unanswered questions, they'll seek that answer elsewhere. And now that you made your content, don't forget about page design and structure. It's going to get a little tricky, especially if the content is long form, which does really well for Google's purposes and for SEO, but it can be pretty difficult to read and digest a really heavy, text-heavy page. So both of these play a crucial role in providing an optimal user experience. And as you create new content on the site, ask yourself the following questions. 1, how easy is it for searchers to find the answer to their question? And 2, is the page just a huge block of text that's difficult to read? In this instance, put yourself in the user's shoes and also check to see what ranking pages or your competitors are doing with their content. Get an idea of how they're structuring it, what the design and flow and layout looks like. They're obviously being rewarded for a reason. Some of the things that you can do to enhance the structure and design of your pages includes using headers to organize the content. So that's like your H1s, H2s, H3s. Follow the proper hierarchy when you're doing this and insert your keywords into the headers to get more value from them, but definitely use them also for organization purposes. Another thing you can do is place images and visual assets throughout the page to break apart the content. You can utilize bulleted and numbered lists for information to make the piece easy to navigate and read. Add internal links and external links to take people to other valuable and relevant pages. For internal links, this is awesome because it keeps them on your website for longer. And while that's the goal, you also want to include external links where it's appropriate to, if there's a lot of value that another page can provide your user with, take them there. The goal should be to always provide the best possible user experience as a whole for your site visitor. And there's 2 more things. You can use calls to actions to increase lead gen opportunities or sales. And then also incorporate a table of contents or anchor links on long pages so people can quickly access the information they're looking for. I'm noticing this is a common trend nowadays, especially with some top publications like you're seeing Search Engine Land and Backlinko and Moz even doing this. And it's so convenient. You can just click that anchor link and be taken to the spot where it addresses your question and provides you with information immediately. So definitely instant gratification on that part that works to help your SEO and user experience.
Awesome. Thank you, Maya. And, we've been doing a lot of this on our own website, and, we're seeing a difference with what these strategies and overall just improving these page experiences, they really work. So again, because we're getting this question a couple of times, we will post this on our website later. So you can go back and watch for some of these that Maya has brought up here just a minute ago. So thank you for that. So with all of that in mind, Rohit, all of this data about, improving the overall experience for the user, that's exactly what VWO does, is to help really identify those opportunities for improvement. So really, how will this page experience update impact website performance? And let's say if your website already performs well, do you think there's going to be a lot of significant impacts when it starts to roll out?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. So I'm quite sure that as we kind of move forward in this presentation, I'm going to talk about some of the things that Google has been looking at historically, right? I mean, so historically, Google has been looking at things like, keywords, content, meta description, technical SEO bits. All of us remember Brad Crutz and things that he used to talk about from an SEO perspective. Now we will be competing on those things along with speed, safety, consistency, and how's the overall user experience on the site, right? I mean, so these factors that Maya spoke about earlier, LCP, FID, these are all important factors along with CLS. And these are all, important because, we might look at some lab data, but the real user experience might be totally different. So what Google also wants to do is, it wants to make sure that businesses who are competitive, who were earlier competing on keywords or content, they also ensure that the websites have a good or a great user experience, and eventually, every business will get there, right? So from our perspective, what we see this change doing. So if you move on to the next slide, Christine. So in the long run, this will definitely have a positive impact, since Google has now kind of created a structure and a framework for brands to focus on user experience. And it's a win-win. I mean, so a better experience also may mean in the future that, I mean, it saves a lot of time, effort, and money. And for the end consumers, it makes them more happy about their entire user experience and journey. And as marketeers, we become more disciplined. So now more than ever, I mean, I've seen marketeers talk to their web developers or their web development teams around what are some of the elements that they're adding on to their website, if they're adding on chatbots, if they're adding on pop-ups, banners, and how much is the impact on load time. And as a person who has been selling to web owners and business and digital businesses for the last 6-7 years, I can tell you that only in the last year, that is in 2020, have I probably seen the most number of questions from marketeers as what is the impact that your platform has on our site speed, right? And that just shows, I mean, site speed has become so important. People have become more aware about tools that can help you compare site speed and what are the most important factors that are contributing to your site speed. So a word of caution for everyone. I mean, we know that the update has been slightly pushed out, but in case you haven't kind of started working on your user experience, and I mean, this could lead to a negative impact as well on your page rankings and all your downstream metrics that are important from a SEO or a Google standpoint. So to make sure that you start working on it. Next slide. So we believe small changes can really have a big impact when it comes to the Google page experience update. And as a marketeer, the first thing that you should try to do is try and look at those things that you can make an impact on without having to go to your developers. I mean, there are a lot of things that I'll start off with some of the legacy tools that might be there on your website, third-party codes that you're not using at all. Make sure you delete all of them, right? For some of those which you're unable to delete right now, the other way could be that you could defer loading some of those tools on your website. You could also identify those tools that are leading your website to slow down. Speak to your vendors about what they are doing to improve the Google Page Insights score. So an example of that is on your right, where you see with VWO, before we did any optimization, once the VWO was added onto the website, this was a website that we just put the code on. The Page Insights score without any optimization was 88. But we did a lot of work around removing the non-critical payload. So anything that gets loaded on, which is non-critical, we would not load that on the first load. And with this level of optimization, we were able to get the Page Insights score almost up to 97. And that was a huge win for all of our customers as well, that they knew that they could work with a vendor which is prioritizing page impact and page load time. And again, I mean, if there are any non-critical tools, I mean, a lot of tools that take up the page load time include tools like chatbots. So if you have such tools, you could defer loading those tools using a tag manager, or you could have them prioritize the loading of such tools. Lazy loading is another important mechanism which you could have set up, and Google has been talking about lazy loading for a while. So with a lot of websites, I mean, I often see that lazy loading isn't sometimes implemented correctly. So make sure that you're implementing lazy loading correctly. And all of the fashion or the e-commerce websites where you have a lot of heavy images, lazy loading is something which can really help you ensure that, I mean, you are getting the best experience for the user. So for example, if you have a video on the website and you don't need to show the entire video playback right up front, you could load an image or a thumbnail of that particular image through a lazy load. And only when the user engages with that particular element is when you start the interacting or loading that particular element in its entirety. So with lazy loading, I think this is one of the practices that you could adopt. You could also move on to the next best practice, and which is primarily around both video and image optimization. So with next gen video and image compression now available, I mean, WebP is one of the formats that we see quite often a lot of businesses using. So this is another important aspect. You should also look at, I mean, who you are using as a CDN for good image delivery, and making sure that images are optimized on your website, because those are the elements that do take up a lot of that payload. So make sure that they are optimized and you're using some of the best next-gen frameworks. The next one is primarily more for you to go back and speak to your development teams as to how they are rendering their websites. Most websites today either have a client side or a server side or a hybrid rendering framework. So it's important for you to understand what works best for your website, and making sure that, all the content that you're loading on your website, either client side or server side, you understand the impact of each of those elements on the page load time. And lastly, experimentation is really important, and this is something which is key because as I was talking earlier, right, the true ROI of experimentation is really to improve customer experience, right? Imagine, if you have seen Netflix or Booking.com or Facebook, they run more than 10,000, 25,000 experiments a year, right? The whole reason behind experimentation is that you are able to collect a lot of behavioral data and how users typically engage with your platform. The idea of experimentation or the culture of experimentation within your organization is important. And by building this culture, you will soon get learnings, right? I had once a client who was, who had a lot of carousels on their website, and they felt that carousels were really doing well, but they did not realize for a long time that the carousel was almost adding up to 100 MB on their website, and it was just something that was broken within the carousel, that it was loading up all the images inside the carousel at once. So experimenting with small elements, experimenting with small changes on your website, even those where you think that can help to optimize page load time or help to optimize user experience, is important. And with this, you will not only have those small wins, all leading up to that big win, which will impact your revenue or your leads or any other macro conversion goal that you are optimizing for. So that's all from my side. Here are some interesting resources from BWO that you can go back and take a look at. So on our website. So thank you. Thanks, Christine. Thanks, Maya, for having me on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rohit. And we will post these on our website, as well as make them available when we send the video out later this week to everyone who watched the show. So thank you to both of you for your presentation and for all of your thoughts. We have a lot of questions. We probably won't get to all of them, I will admit that, but if we don't get to them live, we will make sure to answer them or we'll reach out to you directly. So one that I want to, or that kind of came in a couple of different ways, but this is for both you, Rohit, and Maya, but really, where do you start if you want to start to optimize your page, whether it's for this page experience update or you just want to make it a better user experience in general? Rohit, let's start with you. What's a good place to really start this process?
So what we have seen with a lot of customers is they start by analyzing user behavior on their website, and that can come in a few different ways. Some customers just prefer looking at click behavior data across their entire funnel. Some customers prefer more qualitative feedback directly coming from their customers, because it really gives them a starting point, right? Google Analytics or any other analytics platform only tells you what the problem is on your website. It does not answer the why behind it. So a lot of the qualitative analysis will help you uncover what are the problems behind, low conversions, high bounce rate, drop-offs within your funnel. So I would recommend starting there.
Okay. Maya, what about from an SEO perspective? Where would you start to make these optimizations?
Yeah, it's always good to do like a technical audit of your site just to make sure that the foundation is set properly. But place more of a heavy precedence on starting with like boosting your page as much as possible. So if you have a lot of content, making sure that you have like an author bio or team bio or like a well built out about us to help demonstrate that from your end. And then really using keyword research to guide you in your strategy. When it comes to like what type of content to produce. And you could even do, there's like the people also ask section of the search, which really gives you the questions people are actually asking. So that's a great place to help dictate or give you some ideas for your content strategy. But since that plays such a there's such a heavy importance placed on EAP and content. I would absolutely just make sure that from here on out that you are trying to build out as much valuable content as you can that your users will find helpful.
Awesome. And I would agree that just doing anything really is a good thing. Just testing, good content to see what plays well to your audience, or, testing, whether through your heat maps or, some behavior tracking to see where people drop off. Any kind of learning that you can apply to your website and to your business is going to be a good thing. So maybe you're just testing a couple little small things at first, and then as you gain more data, then you can apply it to more pages on your websites. Okay, the next one I want to say, or page speed is plays a huge role into this update. So Chirohi, I guess how do you understand what is slowing down your site? You've mentioned the images and lazy loading can help, but really, how can you tell what is slowing it down so you can optimize it?
There are a few different tools out there that can help you understand what are those elements or what are those tools that are slowing down your website. One of the tools that I've seen commonly being used is a tool called Lightspeed. But I'm quite sure, if you look out for similar platforms that help you analyze what tools or what plugins or what elements are slowing down your website, that should be a good starting point. In fact, that's what most of our customers come back and show us, that, hey, this is what we see as the impact by adding your tool. So that's the one that I know.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Next question for Maya is, as far as image optimizations and, from an SEO perspective, you want to make sure that you've got alt text and all of that. So for SEO, what is a good image size, or how should you incorporate images onto your website to either break up that content or to enhance your page, all of that? What's a good SEO strategy for images?
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a good question. If I'm remembering correctly, which I'll double check and make sure that I have the specific number, but Screaming Frog usually aims for 100 kilobytes, I believe is what it is. And so if you have, that's an awesome tool. It's the free one. They'll crawl up to 500 URLs. If you have more, you might want to consider getting the actual subscription. It's really affordable. But there's a specific category in there dedicated to images that'll help you find which images don't have alt text, which ones are over 100 kilobytes, which ones are under. So that's the one where I would work on optimizing and making sure they're at the benchmark of 100 or less if possible. But rule of thumb, you don't want to hinder the quality of the image. So try to compress it down as much as possible as you can. If you can't, just stick with it. If you can switch out another image, that's great. If you can't, you don't want to make it pixelated or anything like that. So again, defer to user experience on that front, making sure it looks well on the actual website. But 100 kilobytes, I believe. I'm a broken record over here, sorry. But that's the number and the benchmark that we go after.
Awesome. Okay, next question. I'll direct this to both of you. So Rahid, I'll start with you, but someone said that they have a brand new business website. So the website's only been out for 30 days. So, it's still getting crawled. It's still gaining that traction with Google. They don't have all this data to compare with 6 months ago. Do you have any strategies or recommendations for someone who's just kind of barely starting out with their website?
Yeah, I do. So go to a website called goodui.com. Goodui.com is one, they offer a lot of good best practices around UI, UX, right? Finding out, what works in your business and what are some of the best UX practices. Now, some of the things have really become best practices. People have A/B tested them across a whole bunch of industries. If you look at the e-commerce industry now, in the checkout pages, removing distractions is a very common practice, right? Everyone is focused on removing distractions and getting the user to complete the purchase. So look out for such UX practices. Goodui.org is one great website for that. And definitely start off with some qualitative analysis tool to begin with, because the earlier you start capturing your user behavior data when your traffic is low, you will have more time analyzing user behavior than when your traffic grows to 10,000 or to 1 million.
Okay, Maya, same question from an SEO perspective.
it's kind of nice that you have like a blank slate, or I don't know if that's the right word to use here, but honestly, SEO is such a long-term strategy. It's going to take some time. So I'd make sure that, again, like I am a bit of a broken record when it comes back to the content and the keyword research, but ultimately I believe that is the best way to go about this. Make sure you have a solid keyword research strategy, identify like the intent behind it and what really appeals most to your target audience, and then start writing content from there. My rule of thumb when it comes to content, like I like to aim for longer, maybe 1,000 words or more. That typically tends to rank better for organic purposes. But then make sure that you're incorporating like the page and the design structure elements in there. It's not just a huge block of text. But that's where I'd start for sure. Again, keyword research and content, that's my go-tos.
Well, it's so important in the SEO realm. So it's you can't go wrong with it for sure.
It absolutely is.
Okay, awesome. A lot of people suddenly wrote in, Rohi, what was that website one more time that you just mentioned?
goodui.org.
Perfect. Thank you. So goodui.org. I'll also make sure that that gets linked into our resources later today. And then I'm going to go to one more question. I guess Rohi, I'm going to direct this one more to you. What is, I guess, the best way to really collect this behavior data as it becomes more and more important? Is it something you should be tracking heat maps or clicks, or, just analytics traffic to see what pages perform well? What is a good, I guess, quote unquote, the best way to start tracking this behavior metrics?
So the short answer is, of course, you're going to have a lot of insights. So you got to have some project management or some program management behind this, right? Whether you're using Google spreadsheets or if you're having Jira. So, make sure that you use some sort of project management behind this to actually collect all of your observations, because tools can only give you a lot of data, but to be able to make sense of, let's say, a certain type of behavior, whether it is quantitative or qualitative, you need to have observations, and do make sure that you actually allow multiple people in your team to collect these observations. Observations should come from across the organization because they help to kind of build transparency around the experimentation program, and it helps to kind of get more insights into how what people are thinking about the current user behavior. So try and get as much feedback as possible, as many observations as possible from different parts of your organization, and use that to then construct a well-researched hypothesis.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice, is that you just really just need to start making these data-driven decisions. And then from there, you can learn so much more. It takes just one decision can lead you down a huge path and to really well optimizing your sites. So we are just past the top of the hour. We have a lot more questions. We will get to those who submitted. We'll reach out to you directly if we didn't get to your question live. So thank you to all who were submitted those questions and all who are listening. And thank you so much to Rohi and Maya for your expert advice on these strategies that you can all implement. We will get this talk posted on our website and our YouTube later this afternoon, so you can watch it again if you missed it or you just want to see some of it again. We'll also have an in-depth guide to the page experience update that you can download from our Boostability website. That's boostability.com/resources, and then click on the downloads tab, or you can read about it on our blog as well. We want to make sure that you have all the tools you need to really survive or thrive when this website comes out. And as always, if you need help with your SEO, Boostability is here for you. We can help your website get ready for this page experience update. So reach out to us at boostability.com or give us a call. It's there on your screen. And also be sure to check out boostability.com/search-sessions for updates on our next show coming up in May. We'll post details and the registration link shortly. So thank you again to everyone, to Rohi and Maya, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.